Hello everyone, welcome to today's video. Today is day 3 of being at Hestaland and some pretty cool things happened today. So the day started at 6:30 because that's when my body naturally woke me up. At first I was slightly annoyed by that because breakfast isn't until 8, but then I realized I could go for a walk. So that's what I did. I got dressed and I went for a walk. I got to experience some nice nature by myself, which actually was pretty good because I am spending a lot of time around other people and I'm like equally extroverted and introverted. If I don't take time by myself, I will get drained of the social battery. I really would have preferred to have been asleep, but I did have a very lovely walk. My walk basically took me behind the guest house and up the road, and I walked up to a horse path sign and then I turned back around and went back again. And I was basically taking pictures of the landscape because the landscape was so pretty. And I was walking along a water source. I don't think it was a full-on river. I don't think it was deep enough for a river. And there were some points where the water was shallow that I think a lot of the sediment had actually been grabbed. But I walked on some very swampy ground. I walked by a bunch of birds flying around. I think they had a nest out in the middle because I got closer to them to get a really good look at them, and I got some good looks at them, but a couple of them tried to dive bomb me and they pulled up just in time when they realized I wasn't doing anything. Intimidation status, and they were so loud. The birds were just like chirp, 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 chirp. I also walked by some birds that the coloring looked like it was a puffin, but the actual shape of the bird did not make it look like a puffin. And they were very loud, chirpy things too. And I saw some beautiful sights, but then I walked back, and when I arrived back in the house, some other people had awakened for breakfast by this time, and we sat there knitting, waiting for breakfast. And then breakfast came. It was pretty much the same breakfast as yesterday, but that was all right because it's like, I know this will give me enough energy for the horses. And also they had peanut butter out. That is my comfort food. After breakfast, everyone but one person went to the barn for our group ride. There was one horse that was ridden by 2 different people yesterday, and that was the horse I was on, Fiefeld. Or Fiefel, I think his name is actually pronounced. I've had a chance to look it up and I've heard it pronounced again. The other person who rode Fiefel is more experienced on horses than I, so they ended up giving her a different horse and I rode Fiefel again. What was pretty cool about when I entered the barn is I decided, okay, I'm going to go brush a horse. I picked up a brush and I went to a horse, and it's like, that horse looks familiar, and it ended up being Fiefel. I ended up brushing Fiefel and another horse. One of the other people took a picture of me brushing Fiefel, and apparently I was beaming from like ear to ear. I was like super excited about it. I was just having a good time. While we were waiting for the horses, one of the horses decided to fart. I was like, oh, and the person riding him was like, that's my horse. And then shortly after that, Fiefel decided that it was the perfect time to pee on the barn floor. So it's like, oh, let's step away, give him his, because I know I can't stop him from peeing. He's a wild animal in that regard, even though he's domesticated enough for me to ride him. But I also didn't really want horse pee on my boots. I was like, oh yeah, you feel better now, people? And right after it happened, one of the employees just came over with a shovel of sawdust and just spread it over. It's like, we're just going to dry it off. One of the other horses decided to smell it, and it's like, really? Okay. We ended up going on a 2-hour group hike. We didn't go through as many water ports this time, but we took the horses a far path along. And they explained to us that they were going to take us to a certain point and then turn back and go back the other way. So that way, in case anyone gets tired, we already know where half the trip is. And we saw some beautiful scenery along the way. There was a house on top of a hill that we walked by. There were a couple times we had to pull aside for cars on the road. We got to tolt a little bit too, and I wore 2 bras today to help prevent the bouncing from hurting me. It helped minimally. There's still the bouncy bounce, but it was not as intense as it was yesterday. So when it's horse time tomorrow, I will end up double browing again, which is such a strange phrase to be saying. There's one point where we did pull to the side of the road, and Fiefel was really yanking at the bridle. So Fiefel constantly yanks at the bridle. He doesn't really like having it in his mouth, so I was told to disregard that, but he did it a lot more insistently when we were stopped. And then I realized, oh, he wants to eat. That's food to him. It's like, okay, you can eat. I'll let you eat. Feeful likes to stand behind other horses' butts. He goes really close to other horses' butts, and he actually moves faster when he's behind another horse than when he's out in front. Although when he's tolting, it's fun to watch his hair go like up and down and up and down, and his ears perk up too, and you can tell he gets into the little trot. On the first half of the thing, he was content to follow other horses for most of it. But on the way back, he knew we were headed home, and he's like, "Ooh, I want to be in front." To be fair, if this was like a human tour and I was following the human, I would be that human who'd be like, "Oh, I want to be in front." So without knowing us too much, it's actually amazing how much they've matched horses to the personalities, because everyone's like, "Oh yeah, like this horse is like very similar. Like I understand why this horse is doing this." Even though I don't necessarily understand horses yet, it's like, yeah, I relate to that behavior. One of the horses did trip today. Fortunately, it was not the horse I was on, but someone else's horse fell to the knees and tripped over the rock. She held on and thankfully didn't fall off and didn't get hurt, and the horse appears to be fine too, but some parts of the trails were really, really rocky today. That's where the fall occurred, was in the really rocky part. There's also one point where we tried to tolt today in a place where it was really rocky, and the horses were just like, nah, understandably. There are 2 dogs that I know of that are living on the ranch here. One is the mother and one is her daughter. And this is an amazing place to be a dog. The dogs pretty much roam free throughout the entire property. One of the dogs actually walked with us for the entire ride today. For the entire 2 hours that we were out, this dog followed us along our path. And it's this beautiful top coat, and then you can see like the bottom part of her coat, and her legs were all covered in mud. It's like, wow, this is what dogs dream of. But our ride ended up going a little bit long. They had to push back lunch in order for everyone to get fed. I made arrangements with the bar manager after our ride to pull off my bucket list item. But also, I did find out that some other people use whips with horses, and they're not necessarily used to strike the horses, but they're using the whip as an extension of the hand, and that was an interesting way to think about it, just like a handy extension of a limb. Get the horse to go faster, or it can stop another horse from going forward if the horse is going too fast. It was a pretty useful tool, because I saw some of the employees holding onto the whip as they were riding, but obviously they're not giving it to the people who are just coming to learn how to ride. That's already a lot to deal with. To be fair, I'm not exactly sure what causes the horse to tolt as opposed to just walking, but I think Feeful understands the word tolt, and he also recognizes the clues of the other horses starting to tolt around him. That's what causes him to start and stop, switching gaits. I do know how to stop him. I also found out I was holding the reins the wrong way today, and I just had to have them switched a little bit, because I had the rein going the wrong way. My hand position was right, but the reins were going the wrong way. One of the other ladies was talking to her horse. Her horse had a bit of an attitude. She was talking to her horse like, "Hey, we can't do this. We have to give the other horse their space." And she's using "we" to refer to both herself and the horse, even though she was talking mostly just to the horse. She's like, "No, you can't cut off the other horse," because her horse had decided that some horses could not be in front of her, and her horse was blocking off some of the other riders. But it's the horse that the little kid on the ranch rides, so the horse is docile enough. After the ride, we had lunch. Lunch was a potato and pea soup with some corn. It was very good. I'm not typically a soup person, but the soup here was very good. It was also served with some bread, so I took a lot of the bread. And I was just dunking the bread in the soup because it was good dipping sauce. We were told, don't worry if you run out of the food, we have more in the kitchen. Like the potato soup was in a pot that was like that big, at least. The owner of the ranch, who is responsible for cooking our meals, she literally got onto a stool so she could reach into the top of the pot. But we ran out of bread like 3 times, and one of the other ladies of the group was upset that she was missing out on the bread every time. So when the owner came out with the bread basket, it's like, "Does anyone want more bread?" I said, "Oh, the other lady wants it. She's been wanting bread," so she brought the bread straight to the lady, so she was able to get her bread. There was also a salad, but I didn't touch that. And then after lunch, the thing that I wanted to do was draw a horse while riding a horse. Something that I saw on Taskmaster that I thought would be fun. And I'm not going to go into too much detail about it here because I filmed a whole video about that. I'm going to go into more detail about that during that video. It took like about a half hour or so, and it went pretty much as expected, which was great. And then as I was done, I was showing off my picture. The owner that's responsible for the horses was in the process of shoeing a horse. Then after that, I came back in to knit along with the other person who I brought her along with me to help film the whole process. Midway through the afternoon, we had a trip planned. Today was the day that we went to the spa. We didn't go to the most popular spa. We went to a different spa called Krama. There's basically a geological formation where they have the steam, the water's really heated coming out of the ground. There's one place that was cordoned off and not able to be used as a bath. That was about 100 degrees Celsius, which is hot. That's boiling point. The water got progressively cooler and cooler as it got farther and farther from that. But there's a little section where it had like multiple pools all really close together, like a bunch of small pools all really close together. They had an option to order drinks and they'll bring the drinks out to you. And most of the people opted for that, but I decided not to. And then I found out they had free water, so I was just drinking the water because I knew I was going to get dehydrated. We all got into the closest pool first and it was all right. And then it's like, oh, let's get progressively hotter and hotter. The coolest was like 37 degrees Celsius, I want to say, of the hot water. The hottest was like 42 degrees Celsius. For a reference point, the human body, the normal average is 37 degrees Celsius. For the Americans who are watching who have no idea what any of these measurements mean, the rest of the world is sane and does understand. When we went in, first we had to go to the dressing rooms, and we were warned ahead of time that before we go into the different pools, you have to shower, and you are expected to shower naked. So there was some nudity that was to be expected, and it's not necessarily cordoned off like American gym rooms where you have a separate changing stall. There was none of that. There was a toilet in there though, but only the one. A couple people did end up not going to the spa because they were uncomfortable with being nude. In my case, even though I did feel uncomfortable about the fact that other people might see me naked, that level of being uncomfortable was not enough to stop me from trying out the spots. Like, this was a big selling point of what I was excited to do here in Iceland. It's one of the things that you do in Iceland, so it's like, let's have new experiences. There were times I tried to cover up and be relatively modest, but people saw the goods today, especially since when we got to the showers, there were no curtains on the showers. They were literally just stalls, kind of like in elementary school where we took the standardized test and they put the science boards kind of like that, or like when you're studying college and the tables have that little block thing. The shower stalls were the same shape, and instead of having like soap and the shampoo in every shower, they just had one soap and shampoo thing on the opposite side. So you often had to leave the shower to get more soap. And I was like, yeah, it is what it is here. And then trying to put the swimsuit on a wet body was not easy, but my swimsuit was wet as well from the hot tub last night, so I don't think it really mattered. I ended up leaving my towel in the locker room, which was a good decision because my towel was already damp and it would have just gotten unbearably wet if I had taken it out. There were 5 warm pools, 1 cold plunge pool, a steam room, a sauna, a little shower head thing on the outside that gave cool water, and a relaxing room that has like an actual fire going on inside, but it's not as hot as the sauna. I was in the process of just trying out the different pools with other people, moving around with other people, and trying not to spend too much time in the pool by myself. I don't think I actually spent too much time in the pool by myself. The thing that ended up being a lifesaver that I didn't know if was going to work or not was this thing. So I'm not sure if I was supposed to have my phone in the saunas. I know I wasn't supposed to have it in the dressing room, and I did not use it in the dressing room. But I thought it would be cool, like, to get pictures of the whole facility while making sure that my phone stayed dry. And I've had this thing for years. I hadn't used it until today. And it's from a store that is now out of business. Rest in peace, Bed Bath & Beyond. But this thing worked. I just left my phone compressed in there and it wouldn't let me unlock my phone. But you don't have to unlock your phone to use the camera. And that's really all I wanted to use. I was actually able to get footage underwater for the first time with my phone, and I haven't attempted to take a picture underwater ever since I had one of those underwater cameras with the disposable film. The way cameras used to be before they all became digital. I had one that could go underwater and the pictures never turned out that good. While my pictures for the underwater with the phone might not be as good, they are at least 10 times better than the pictures I used to take when I was like under 10 with that type of camera. So we were able to take a group picture and whatnot. I did not take my phone to the steam room because I was afraid of how it would react. I did take it into the sauna, and I did not necessarily leave it into the water all the time. I did often put it up so it wasn't just completely immersed in water. But there was one pool that basically had a view of the whole geyser situation with the steam billowing out. That was a nice pool. But probably the nicest pool was a shallow one. It had a very nice shape. It's almost like a paddling pool, honestly. And you could lie flat in the pool without it necessarily going over your face. It sloped somewhat downwards, so you could have the option to float with the head supported, or you could just slide it down. A couple of us decided to try the cold plunge. Since it was there, even though I am not a fan of the cold, I really do not like the cold. I know going to hot water and then doing a cold plunge and then going back to the hot thing is a Scandinavian idea that Iceland is also adopting. I'm guessing what we were at is very similar to a Nordic spa. It's like, well, you gotta try it. Yeah? I went in, and for the first time, I only went halfway in before I was like, nope, don't like this. I literally screamed. We weren't the only group there at the spa, and the other people who were there, they were very entertained by me and the other people who were trying to like cold plunge at the time from our reactions. A couple of them decided to do it again, and it's like, you know what? Instead of just stopping, I'm going to go at least up to my shoulder in this. My head might not be able to go in, but I'll go up to my shoulder. So I went in and I was like, don't think, and I went down to my shoulder. Later on, I saw this elderly lady go in, and she's just like chilling in the cold plunge, and she has this stoic look on her face, and it's like, whew, that lady is tough. That lady is super tough. Also, one of the good things about being in the pools is everyone's in their swimsuits, and then all the tattoos are out to play, and you get to see what everyone's tattoos are, and I enjoy looking at artwork, so people ask each other about their tattoos, and one of the people ended up getting a ski slope tattooed on her leg because that was a ski slope where she tore her AC. It's a very nicely colored tattoo as well. When I was trying to film underwater, she offered to let me try to capture the tattoo under the water, but I didn't get a good enough picture of that. On the way back to Hestaland, we had an option of whether we were going to stop by a waterfall or not, and several people were like, I'll go with what the group wants. I was like, if there's time, I want to see the waterfall. And at least 3 other people went, I want to see the waterfall, and nobody said no. So it's like, okay. Yeah. So the person who's the de facto leader, the knitting designer, she's like, yeah, we'll make time for it. So we drove to, I think it's like Ballafrost or something like that. Ballafloss. Editing Becky's going to put it here. Editing Becky knows what her job is. I'm so glad we went. I think we did end up going out of our way to go there. It's basically this long, like, canyon type of thing. And the water that is falling down, there's a whole turquoise section of the river. And it gets darker and darker and closer to the real color as it goes down. But as you went farther up the path to see more and more of the waterfall, it got progressively more turquoise until one point it's like literally white foam. It was impressive. And the waterfalls, it wasn't just one little dinky waterfall. No, it was like multiple waterfalls going down the rock face. And there was lava-based rock. There was a bridge so you could stand over it. We ended up crossing the bridge and we found our way up to some lava rocks, and you can see how the lava traveled down and formed the grooves into the ground. So at one point we took a picture where we played that the floor was lava. The bridge was super high. It was like 60 meters maybe? I don't even know. It was so high. It could possibly be taller than the Eagle Stadium. Like the highest point at the Eagle Stadium, it's possibly taller than that. Or it's around that size. It's really close. And I was like, this would be a great place to play Pooh Sticks. So if you're unaware, in Winnie the Pooh, there's a game called Pooh Sticks where if you're on a bridge, you drop 2 sticks into the water and you have them hit the river, and then you run to the other side of the bridge, and the stick that turns out first is the one that wins. And I was like, this would be a fun game to play. So I see shrubbery there. I originally tried to pull off a live branch, but it wasn't working, and I feel kind of bad that I damaged the environment there. But I did find a dead stick, like perfect. So I bring over my crumbly dead stick and I drop it in the river, and then I see it immediately gets engulfed by the water, and the stick is so thin that I rush to the other side of the thing, and I'm standing there for a couple seconds. Like, one, the stick has disappeared, but also two, it's probably already across. It's just now sunk by the water. We can't see a thing. Yeah, we ended up making it back to the fan, and we were told to be back by dinner by 7, but we ended up being late. We ended up arriving back at Hestaland at 7:30. The people who had stayed behind were super kind and held dinner for us. We thought they were just going to start eating, but they didn't. Dinner was spaghetti and meatballs. For the vegetarians, they had marinara sauce without the actual meat in it, along with some bread. And then dessert was an almond butter cake. There was also homemade whipped cream and strawberries. I originally went up to get the almond cake when there were just strawberries, and I'm like, wait, something's missing. I think whipped cream is missing. I looked in, I see the owners whipping up some of the whipped cream. It's like, I'll wait for that. So she puts it out, and then I just go ahead, take a knife. I already cut myself a slice, and then she ends up coming out later with the thing. And it's like, sorry, I was too impatient. It's like, no, I'm glad you dug in. And then she went there and she cut the slices for everybody else. After that, we knit. So I started the sleeve this morning. I ended up finishing one of the sleeves. I forgot to measure it with the tape measure. I measured it against my arm, which is probably the more important measurement. But I started my second sleeve, and I imagine it's going to go faster now that I know exactly how many rows I need in order for the sleeves to match. It's one of those days where it doesn't feel like I knit a lot, but I did knit a lot because I have a whole sleeve. We just knit and talked and listened to music, and it pretty much leads us to now. So at this point, I'm going to go to bed. See how light it is outside? It's after midnight. This is nighttime, and look how light it is outside. Tomorrow is solstice, I think. So technically the longest day, the sun's not gonna set. We have a chill day planned for tomorrow before our big road trip on Thursday. But I think we're gonna be starting with knitting in the morning, which will be good. But yeah, I'm gonna go get some sleep. Anyway, that was today's entertainment. Have a nice day.